What is up? Welcome to another edition of the NFL Fantasy Live podcast. It's me, your man, MG Marcas Grant, alongside the Fantasy Hall of Famer, Michael Fabiano. And Fabs, is this another weird week? I feel like this is another kind of weird fantasy.
I mean, Mitchell Trubisky looked like Joe Montana, 6 touchdown passes. Jared Goff, 5 touchdown passes. It was an insane week for quarterbacks, man. And, I'm not talking about Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers did not have a good game by his standards. I'm talking about some of these matchup-based quarterbacks like Andy Dalton. My goodness gracious, some of these quarterbacks are putting up huge numbers.
You know, and we may get to it a little bit later on this show, but I was looking last night. It has been a quarterback-heavy year, like an insane quarterback year.
Even Dak had 18 points.
More than normal. It's just been wild for the quarterbacks. Behind the glass, as always, it is our loyal and faithful producer, Sir Edward L. Murphy, Esquire. Murph, what's up?
Yeah, just going along with what Fab just said, the NFL is so unpredictable, but yet so fun. You have these quarterbacks just throwing for 400 yards. You have 6 touchdowns. You have teams you don't expect to winning. I might hate how my team's playing, but I'm definitely a fan of the league in general this year. It's a lot of fun to watch.
By the way, look at the man wearing that Yankees jersey behind the glass. I love it.
Yeah.
Go Yanks. Sorry, Marcus.
I did see on Twitter on Sunday that Eddie, you had sort of you're kind of waving the white flag about the Giants.
I've declared it's over. I'm just a fan of my fantasy football teams. I'm a fan of the amount of offense in the league. It's fun to watch. Yeah. So I'm just a fan of the NFL this year.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. He's kind of throwing in the towel after watching the Giants on Sunday against the New Orleans Saints. We got plenty to talk about. We are at the quarter pole, right? And it's funny as I say this because I know that when I say this, somebody out there who's a huge horse racing fan is probably going to tweet at me and tell me that I'm saying it wrong because in horse racing, I know the quarter pole is when there's 1/4 of the race left to go. Screw you.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's actually the actual term, but nobody uses it that way. Everybody says the quarter pole when you get to 1/4 of the season. So that's how I'm going to say it. It's the quarter pole. We're going to talk about the if we could do some draft things over again, how would we look at some of these players who either have underperformed or overperformed? Would we draft them in the same way? Would we do something different? Who are the biggest busts, biggest surprises, all that kind of stuff. Plus, because it is Monday, we'll talk waiver wire as well, get you some names that you may want to target as you go forward. We are into the buys. We had buys last week. We have 2 buys coming up this week. So a lot to talk about there as well. And maybe get some of your tweets as well for Monday morning so you can kind of vent a little bit because that's what we like to do here. In the meantime, let's do some news.
Let's do the news.
Rob Gronkowski left the Patriots win on Sunday with an ankle injury. In fact, the latest update is that he is considered day-to-day, which a little bit nerve-wracking because the Patriots are on a short week. They play on Thursday this week, so that means it's a couple fewer days for Gronk to get healthy and be back out there on the field. This is big. I know Gronk hasn't been great since week 1. He's just kind of been, meh. Mm-hmm. But it's Gronk, and we're looking for tight ends anywhere. So to potentially take one of the biggest chess pieces off the board, that's a huge deal.
Yeah, it is. Ian Rappaport, though, did tweet that Gronk is day-to-day, and he's told that the injury is, quote, not horrible. So we'll see what happens. But, how bad is the tight end position right now because of all these injuries? And it goes back to the preseason with Hunter Henry getting hurt, or even before the preseason with Hunter Henry. And now Gronkowski is a question mark. You lose Tyler Eifert, and prayers out to Tyler Eifert. That was awful. I hated to see that. Yeah. Even we're bemoaning that we lost Will Dissly, Marcus. Even Will Dissly got hurt. So if you need a tight end this week, you're probably picking up Vance McDonald, or if somebody dropped George Kittle, you can go out and get him. O.J. Howard's another one who got hurt too. So this is a really difficult position to fill right now, and if you have Rob Gronkowski, you have to make sure you pick up a tight end to insure yourself if you don't have that insurance already.
Would you pick up Dwayne Allen?
No, I can't do it.
I feel like on a Thursday, I'm not going to mess with Dwayne.
Right. You got Julian Edelman back. The good news for Gronk, though, is when he comes back, if it's Thursday or maybe shortly thereafter, you're going to get Gordon, who came back last week. You're going to get Edelman. And so defenses can't, focus all of their attention on Gronkowski. Should open up things for him. Maybe he is a guy that you buy low on. And Marcus and I just made a trade last week, which helped neither one of us in the first week.
That helped no one.
Juju and Gronkowski, but we digress.
Yeah, that sort of kind of made me feel better because I looked at Gronk's numbers and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah,
and I saw Juju and I'm like, all right, so I feel okay about that. So
that was bad.
So it was even in the sense that nobody.
They both sucked.
Right, exactly.
Right.
You mentioned Tyler Eifert. He is done for the year. Had an awful looking injury. If you haven't seen it, I don't know.
Don't watch it.
Parental discretion advised. If you haven't seen it, either way. Season is over. It came after he had a touchdown catch early in that game against the Atlanta Falcons. And look, I know that the narrative about him has been that he's injury prone. This wasn't one of those. This was just bad luck.
And he was having a good game too.
Yeah.
Very productive game. He was a guy that I liked a lot going into the week, and we just hope things heal up and he's good to go for 2019.
Now, I know that I think the knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people might be to go and try to get Tyler Kroft, but let me throw in the name CJ Uzomah. Uzomah? I don't know.
You're the one who knows the middle names and the pronunciation.
CJ, just type in UZO and you will find him. And I say that because he's playing a few more snaps than Tyler Kroft has. In fact, he was kind of even with snaps with Tyler Eifert when he was there. Does have a touchdown. Not a lot of targets at this point, but his usage rate may go up at this point. So it's a toss-up. I would say, give Uzomah a shot. He's a streamer. You don't have to. I wouldn't use a waiver claim on him. I would see if you can just pick him up off the waiver wire, say on Saturday afternoon, in case you're still looking for a tight end. But it is bleak out there.
It is bad. It really is. And if you drafted Travis Kelce, you've got to be loving life right now because he is clearly the best player at that position, and he's in an offense that is just clicking on all cylinders at this point.
He might be the only tight end who is performing.
Zach Ertz has been good.
Zach Ertz has been good, but performing in the way that you drafted him and expected him to be. I mean, it's Kelce, it's Ertz. Kyle Rudolph has been pretty good too. But,
it's Uzomah.
All right,
Uzomah.
Cool. Uzomah. So use him up.
Use him up.
Go to the waiver wire.
Hardest name I've ever had to pronunciate on air though. Shei Ejiratutu. I could not say that name forever.
Fresno State's finest.
And Eddie's like, who the hell is Shei?
Yeah, man. Wide receiver, played for the Chargers for a couple years.
Yes. Okay.
So that's harder than Michael Huamanawanui?
No, that one, I don't say that one. I let Marcus say it.
Huamanawanui, yeah, exactly.
No, I'm good.
Other news, Dalvin Cook admits that he is not 100%, which I guess kudos to him for saying it. I mean, I think we kind of got that since we saw him on Thursday night and was a non-factor. He ended up leaving that game against the Rams. Just the production was not there. And so now I think the bigger question is, going forward, is this going to be a lingering, nagging sort of thing where we're not going to see Dalvin Cook at his best the rest of the year? Or, can we hope that maybe with a little bit of rest, we can get him back to 100%? Because this is not the Dalvin Cook we were hoping.
This situation is a suck fest. Ask anyone who's got Leonard Fournette, right?
Oh.
Hamstring injury. And tries to come back. Dalvin Cook last week tried to come back. I would prefer... And the Vikings don't care what I think, but I would prefer that they just sit him until he is 100%, give the boatload of those carries to Latavius Murray, and let Dalvin get back to 100%, full strength. Because if you risk this guy getting worse or not getting better by playing him, even if it's on a snap count, you're not doing him any good. You're not doing Murray any good. He can't get into any kind of rhythm. And more importantly, you can't help fantasy owners by doing that because we don't know what the heck to do. And they've got the Eagles this week. And the Eagles defense, guys, I promise you, look at the numbers. They are so much better at home than they are on the road. He is a risk-reward RB2 right now, and there's more risk than reward as long as he's dealing with this thing. I just wish they'd sit him and get him healthy.
Yeah, I mean, I think they got us super excited when he came back. And tried to go last week, and obviously that didn't work out. So, we'll see what happens going forward. Let's have a moment of silence for Ryan Fitzpatrick, huh? All right, that's enough of that. Ryan Fitzpatrick benched for Jameis Winston as the Bucs lost. They got rolled by the Chicago Bears.
That was embarrassing,
just
dude.
rolled by the Chicago Bears on Sunday. And Fitzpatrick, not great in the first half, threw a pick, completed 50% of his passes, couldn't move the offense. I believe the Bucs had just 4 first downs in the entire first half. And though at halftime, we saw Fitzpatrick on the bench. Jameis Winston came off the bench. Not that he was a whole lot better. He threw a couple of picks himself. So this is obviously the end for Fitzpatrick as a starter. Unless something happens with an injury with Jameis Winston, I think he is done. The question, though, the Bucs have a bye this week. They come back in week 6. Do you have any confidence in starting Jameis Winston when he comes back?
Dude, I'd play him. Why not? I mean, Jameis wasn't terrible last season. You know, people, Jameis Winston, suspension. And he wasn't bad last year. Look at his numbers. Go back and look at the numbers. His numbers weren't bad at all. And, I mean, when you have Mike Evans, you've got Deshaun Jackson, who's having a good season. The emergence of Chris Godwin. They have no running game. They have no running game. And Rojo came in, and they didn't do hardly anything.
They can't run the ball at all.
So
doesn't matter who it is.
They're going to throw the damn ball, and their defense is just garbage. I mean, Mike Smith, ugh, that's just not good. And so it's sort of like the perfect recipe for a quarterback putting up fantasy points, right? Good weapons in the passing game. You've got Cameron Brate. We mentioned O.J. Howard's going to be out. And your defense is trash. So he could put up some points. And if you need a quarterback, and a lot of people out there could need a quarterback, obviously he's on a bye this week. Hell, I'd pick him up, man, for the long term if you're really hurting at that position.
I look at the schedule, and so like after the bye, they've got the Falcons. You're starting.
Great one.
You're definitely starting them there. The Browns.
The Browns got they got Derek Carr yesterday.
I have a whole heap and helping of thoughts on Derek Carr in that offense.
Can't wait to hear him.
But I don't know. I have mixed feelings about Jameis. I just do. I know everybody's like, yeah, he was pretty good last year, and I'm going back and I'm looking, and it was a roller coaster, man. Like some weeks he was up, some weeks he was kind of down. You got to live with still picks on the reg. He's a streamer at best for me, but either way.
Oh, I'm not saying he's a QB1, but I think he could be very useful. And again, you look at that. You got Atlanta, Cleveland's defense, Cincinnati's defense. Then you got a couple of bad matchups, Carolina, Washington, then at Giants. Who knows? We're not sure about the Giants' defense. They held Drew Brees to next to nothing yesterday. San Francisco's no good. And then you finish there 14, 15, 16. Saints, good matchup. At Baltimore, bad matchup. Dallas in Week 16. It's a deep position, though. It's a deep position. So I still say Jameis is worth an ad if you need a quarterback.
Yeah, I would think a lot of people are going to go. Certainly, Fitzpatrick is going to be on everyone's waiver wire. If he wasn't already. And now the question is, will there be a stampede for Jameis Winston, who is owned in just about 35% of NFL.com leagues? So we'll see there. Finally. A couple of key guys coming back from suspension.
Hallelujah. And I know you have Mark Ingram in one of your leagues.
You have been waiting for this for a while. Mark Ingram, Julian Edelman back. Would you play one, either, both, none of those guys this week?
I'm playing Ingram. I mean, especially you only have 2 teams on a bye, but dude, running back right now is tough with all the backfield committees. I still say, at worst, he's a flex starter, right? at worst, unless we hear that he's going to come back and he's going to see limited backfield rotation, but I really think he's going to be just fine. And Edelman, depending on what happens with Gronkowski, I say he could be in the flex market there as a PPR option as well, too. It's not like Edelman and Tom Brady need to work on their rapport because they certainly have it. So, and against the Colts, whose defense is not great, Edelman's worth a play.
Well, see, here's the thing. The Colts, I think they did get lit up by Tennessee last week. They had been decent before that. The thing that one thing that worries me about both these guys, because being on suspension means you can't be around the team at all. Mm-hmm. It's not about them learning the playbook or anything like that. Both those guys are going to be fine. But I do wonder about just them being up to game speed right away, especially for Edelman having a short week to work on. That worries me a little bit. The thing that worries me about Mark Ingram is Washington's defense has been pretty good against the run so far this year. They had their bye, so they obviously didn't play, but they're giving up less than 100 rushing yards per game. And that's a team in the Saints that, for the most part, yesterday kind of aside, hasn't run the ball particularly well. So.
Yeah, I will say this, though. So they played the Cardinals, and David Johnson just didn't get the ball. They played the Colts, and they don't have a running back right now.
True.
They have Naheem Hines, who's catching the ball, and then Green Bay, and that was before Aaron Jones. So I think maybe that is a little bit deceptive. So, but we'll see what happens.
I mean,
I know everyone.
I'm probably going to start Mark Ingram anyway.
Yeah, I mean, everyone out there who's got Alvin Kamara, they're not worried. I can promise you that. That kid is just electric. And you know what? I mean, we can potentially get into this a little bit later. I mean, dude has been worth every bit of a top 2 or 3 pick, if not more, so far this season.
Absolutely. So, be curious to see the news as it goes along this week, especially to see if Edelman, how he's working back in and what the expectations are for him. I mean, remember Josh Gordon came and made his Patriots debut last week and was fine. Nothing earth-shattering, despite the proclamations of one Akbar Bajabiamila, who said he was going to have like 100.
Oh wait, we got to go back and look at some of the ridiculousness that Akbar was spewing on Sunday.
I'm pretty certain that Josh Gordon did not have anywhere near 180 yards.
Any comparative to Randy Moss?
I feel like I would have.
I love you, Akbar, but sometimes you are outside of your ever-loving mind.
Yeah, that was a little bit out of control. In the meantime, that's pretty much all the news you need to know.
That was the news.
Let me tell you a little bit about Robinhood. It is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission-free. Plus, with a simple and intuitive design that presents data in an easy-to-digest way, it's a non-intimidating way for stock market newcomers to invest for the first time with true confidence. All it takes is 4 taps on your smartphone to place a trade. You can even get custom notifications for price movements so you never miss the right moment to invest. Robinhood's giving listeners a free stock like Apple, Ford, or Sprint to help build your portfolio. All you got to do, sign up at live.robinhood.com. That is live.robinhood.com. Joined now on the phone by Shawn Barber, 10-year NFL veteran linebacker with stops in Washington, Philly, Kansas City, and Houston, and participating in the 5th annual Legends Community Fantasy League. So, Shawn, appreciate the time. How are you?
Man, no doubt. Called me on a week where I'm a little bit down. I fell 2 spots. You know, I'm into this fantasy thing, so I'm a little bit hooked.
All right. Well, first, let's just start with the basics. I mean, for those who don't know, can you explain what is the Legends Community League and how did you get involved with it?
Man, the Legends Fantasy League was something that they reached out through NFL Legends. I'm asking any former players if they wanted to sign up and be a part of a fantasy league. And you could just sign up. You could call the NFLPA, and they got our team signed up. And then it was, I don't know how many guys. It seemed like it was over 200 or 300 guys all wanted to be a part of this. So they kind of did an open call as far as drafting. You just logged on, put your name on one of the draft boards, and they kind of randomly put us in different groups. So I got put in a group with, I think, a bunch of ringers. They kind of take me out back and give me the best run for my money right now. But I think I got some things under the sleeve to find a way to come out as a champion when it's all said and done.
Hey, Shawn, so you and I did a fantasy show years ago together. Have you been playing fantasy football for a long time? And if the answer is yes, did you play when you were an active player?
Oh, man, the answer is yes on all the sports.
Okay.
I think my first year of fantasy was actually 2002.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the 2002 year. I go to the Eagles, and I'm actually doing a fantasy with some guys back from the D.C. and Richmond area, guys I grew up with. And that was my first year of doing fantasy. I won the league that year, and I've been hooked ever since.
Well, let's look at your roster here, because I like to do a thing. I call it Monday moaning, where you kind of complain. You can get to complain about some of the mistakes you made with your roster. You started Ryan Tannehill over Andy Dalton. We all make mistakes. Walk us through that process when you were making that decision.
Well, okay, so looking at Ryan Tannehill and the Miami Dolphins, I like what Adam Gase is doing there, the up-tempo. You're getting so many offensive plays run per game, and then the lack of a running game, and they were just overboard with their receivers. They were just constantly putting up, 200, 300, 3-touchdown games. And then I had the Red Rockets sitting there, and I'm like, man, I don't know. Andy Dalton going against Atlanta defense. I know there was going to be kind of a high-scoring game, but I thought that I saw this. I had Giovanni Bernard already on my team, so I'm like, I'm going to get points through him, which he he came through in a big way with 2 touchdowns. I just didn't see Andy Dalton putting up 3 touchdowns, 337 yards. So I made the wrong start when it comes to the poor performance by Ryan Tannehill. 100 yards, 1 interception, gives me 1 lost fumble for a total of 0 points.
Yeah, Shawn, you obviously didn't read my column last week. Come on, man. I'm trying to help you out here. I'm just kidding. So Kareem Hunt, okay, has not started off great. Yardage has not been there. He's getting into the end zone. Do you feel like he's going to get back to what he was as a rookie, or is this kind of what we're going to see from Kareem Hunt the rest of the season?
Man, when I drafted Kareem in this league, I think I went with one of those things where he was drafted so high in my league. He's a must start no matter what the matchup is, and I just have to rely on him putting together a good ground game versus the Broncos defense. I know the Broncos defense is quick off the ball. They got Chubb, they got Von Miller, they got guys who get after the passer. I'm hoping that Andy Reid creates a little bit of spread rushing type game, kind of like what I saw the Saints do with Kamara the other night, and maybe lead to 3 rushing scores to keep Patty Mahomes off the field, because I'm going against Patrick Mahomes.
Speaking of running backs, I mean, you've got Kenyon Drake, and he was a guy I was sort of torn over, and I always joke that Frank Gore is going to live forever. At this point, are you worried that Frank Gore is going to live forever and keep taking away from Kenyon Drake?
Yeah, I've seen it week in and week out. Obviously, Kenyon Drake's on my bench. I got him, Matt Breida. I can't wait for Mark Ingram to be lifted from his suspension. I mean, that's the one in the holster I've been holding on for the first 4 weeks, trying to get through the first 4 weeks so I can start him week 5. Find a place on my team for him to get in there and get involved with the way you see the Saints running the ball. I can only imagine Mark Ingram getting those handoffs, some of those touchdowns away from Kamara. I'm so excited about that. So I think my team overall, the running back pool looks great. Man, we talked about missed opportunities. I had Cooper Kupp on the bench with 28 points. That's my most miserable feeling of today, having him on the bench. Everything else I could live with, but the Cooper Kupp and then the Tannehill over Dalton, those are 2 things I might have to be kicking myself in the butt about come Tuesday morning.
Yeah, trust me, we've
all been there.
Continually kick ourselves in the butt for decisions that we make every single week. So talk about Brian Dawkins' men's events, All Out or All In, on October 4th.
Man, I'm so honored and blessed to be a part of that. Me and Brian obviously played together at the Eagles for a few seasons, 2 seasons to be exact. And in that time, man, we created a bridge, kind of a fellowship amongst 2 guys that are definitely just have a passion of the Lord, see men maximize their lives in every role, whether it's husbands, fathers, coaches, teachers, whatever role you see yourself as a man in this, in society today. Just finding a way to maximize it through the things of having good character, good integrity, being able to fall back on your instincts as a man and be more than what you see others. When you see other guys fall into depression, pornography, and these other insecurity things the guys are going through, we just kind of felt there was a need once he stepped away from the NFL to put together a platform. And this conference is the first of many. There's going to be a platform for men to sit there and listen to us have testimony about things we struggle with throughout our lives as players and as husbands and as fathers, and then try to give these guys some encouragement and some structure of how to put these things back together in their lives and be better men.
Hey, well, Shawn, appreciate the work you guys are doing in the community. Look forward to kind of continuing to follow this and all the work that you and Brian Dawkins and everybody's doing. And appreciate the time. Best of luck the rest of the season in fantasy. Hopefully we can talk to you later and you have pulled this out and figured out a way to win a championship.
Oh, I'm looking forward to making a run. Like I said, when Mark Ingram comes back, I'm looking forward to making a 4-0 second quarter of my season, getting to the top of my division and being ready to roll from that point.
Hey, cool. Appreciate it. Hey,
Thanks,
take care, Shawn.
Good talking to you.
All right. Appreciate it, Fab.
See ya.
When you spend an entire day or week cooking something, you want it to turn out really awesome, right? I mean, make sure whatever you're cooking comes out perfect with Joule Sous Vide. Joule heats food to the right exact temperature and holds it there. Beef, poultry, pork, seafood, veggies, dessert. I mean, practically everything comes out exactly the way you like it every time. And with Jewel, it's fun and easy to try cooking new recipes or cuts of meat at home because there's zero guesswork and food is never under or overcooked. And it's easy to cook for a crowd. If it fits in a large cooler, you can cook it with Jewel. Jewel makes a great companion to your grill or smoker because it separates the cooking step from the finishing step, so meats come out perfectly tender and juicy on the inside and get that charred, crispy bark on the outside. I've been using it at home. I've made some chicken. I made some vegetables. I talked with our pal Mark Istook. I know he is a big fan of it. He has been raving about the steaks that he has made, so that might have to be my next challenge there.
Where's mine? Where's mine, Eddie?
It's there.
Sounds delicious.
It's
That stuff sounds good.
To get yours, visit chefsteps.com/Jewel and use code FANTASY to get $15 off for a limited time. That's chefsteps.com/JOULE, code FANTASY. Jewel, perfect food every time. Thanks again to Shawn Barber for dropping by to talk a little bit about his fantasy team and the charity work he is doing along with Brian Dawkins. Wish him continued success with that and with the fantasy team as well. It's good to know, though, that even the former players still make some of these same mistakes with fantasy.
We all do,
right?
man. We're all looking at the same numbers. Jordan Howard was a perfect example.
It's almost like trying to predict a human endeavor is difficult.
Yes, it is. It is. And people don't understand that at all on Twitter.
I think they do. I think they just like to vent at us, and we are the focus of their rage sometimes. But, hey, sometimes you got to look at yourself in the mirror, okay?
That's right.
You're the one who hit submit on that roster. All right, so here we are. By the time tonight ends, we will be 4 weeks through the season. So most everyone will have played 4 games. Their quarter of their season will be done. So that seems like a good time to kind of look back at the draft and how things went in your respective drafts and maybe tweak your schedule, your strategy a little bit. Think of some different things. Think of how you would do it over if you had a chance to do it over. So let's just start at the top. I mean, when we were back in the summer, we were talking about 4 guys that could possibly be the number 1 overall pick. I mean, at the time, it was in no particular order, Lev Bell, Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson. Mm-hmm. I would say that at this point in the season, that list might be down to 3. And I think only one of those 4 guys would be in there. I'll say this. I'll say 4. I'll put it back at 4. And with 2 of those guys in that list. So if you were drafting today, let's go Todd Gurley, let's say Zeke Elliott, Alvin Kamara, Melvin Gordon. Who would you take number 1?
For me, it would be Gurley. And Kamara would be a very close 2. As great as he is, Mark Ingram's coming back. I mean, he's going to see some touches out of that backfield. Kamara's been very successful as a pass catcher, too. 2 weeks ago, had 20 targets. But I want to talk about Lev Bell.
Okay.
So in our experts league, I drafted Lev Bell. I think I was like 4th or 5th overall. News hadn't really broke that there could be a potential long layoff here for him. And I won my first game. I've lost the last 3. And I can promise you right now, James Conner just is not Le'Veon Bell. And after last night, we saw what the Steelers offense did or didn't do. Ben Roethlisberger looked terrible. He looked terrible. Even at home, he looked terrible.
Yep.
And, I'm sitting there on my couch. I'm thinking to myself, James Conner ain't Le'Veon Bell. I got wrapped into it too. The first week he was ridiculous. 135 yards rushing, 34 fantasy points, and then every week Marcas's fantasy points have dropped and dropped and dropped. And I get it. Yesterday was a big part of it was game script because the Ravens were winning, the Steelers abandoning the run, but the Ravens, hell, even in game script games that are negative for Le'Veon Bell, he's still putting up big numbers. So I sent a tweet out and I said, I miss at Le'Veon Bell, and I had like the Deadpool where he does like the little heart. Mm-hmm. And Lev liked that tweet. I miss the hell out of Le'Veon Bell right now. I've got him in 3 leagues. Steelers fans, Dave Damashek's got to be missing Le'Veon Bell because the offense, I'm not saying it's fallen apart, but it is not nearly as good as it was when Bell was the guy there. And here's the bad news, though. I mean, with what happened to Earl Thomas, and that stunk, man. I was so upset that Earl got hurt. That's sort of adding fuel to the fire for Le'Veon Bell to keep holding out.
He's not coming back.
Right?
Not soon. He's not coming back before week 10.
And I came in here, I'm thinking maybe I should do some sort of just, really impassioned, emotional plea to Le'Veon to come back. But after what happened to Earl, I don't think I'm going to do that because it would be selfish of me to want Le'Veon Bell to come back without getting the money that he so rightly deserves, just to help me on a fantasy football team. With that being said, I really do believe, and I've said this for weeks now, that unless Le'Veon Bell gets traded, he's not coming back. He's not coming back until he needs to. And
week 10, pretty much.
At that point, who knows what's happening with James Conner? Who knows what's happening with the offense there? Who knows what's happening with the Steelers? They're going in the wrong direction right now. But Le'Veon Bell is sort of, he's proving his point, with what happened to Earl and what's happening with the Steelers offense. And James Conner's a good player. Don't get me wrong. Very inspirational story. He's not Le'Veon Bell. And so if you drafted Le'Veon Bell in the first round like me, you can't replace him. You just can't. And James Conner's been good, but he hadn't been great. And look at his yards per carry average the last few weeks. It's not been good at all. You just can't replace him. So at this point, and I've talked about this, and we've talked about this, about making trades for Le'Veon Bell. Should you try to trade him? Should you trade for him? At this point, if you have him, unless you're willing to give up nothing, you can't trade him. You can't trade him because the man is not coming back. To me, he's not coming back unless he gets traded. Now, one thing that I would love to see is, and because the Colts have done this sort of thing before, trade for that big name running back, Trent Richardson. Didn't really work out for them at that point. I remember I was excited when that deal happened. I'm like, oh my gosh.
I remember
Trent Richardson.
I remember I think I wrote actually for NFL.com. I think I said that they were going to be kind of the new triplets I figured Andrew Luck, T.Y. Hilton, and Trent Richardson. It was going to be the new, Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, Adrian James situation. I was wrong.
See, now, Jim Irsay, if you're listening to me, and I know you're following me on Twitter. You're probably not listening, but whatever. Go and make the move, man. I mean, I get it. The problem is you can't sign him to a long-term deal. But imagine Le'Veon Bell in Indianapolis. My goodness gracious. The mouth just starts to salivate over the stats that he could put up in that offense. Look at what Naheem Hines is doing as a pass catcher in that offense. And if that ever happened, goodness gracious, everything would be forgiven. Le'Veon Bell would return to being the elite fantasy running back that he is. Now, with this being said, James Conner is not a must-start anymore. I mean, he's getting touches. He's probably an RB2. He's not an RB1 anymore. Good matchup this week against Atlanta, so we can see what happens there. But we can't kid ourselves. James Conner is not Le'Veon Bell. And until we get Bell back in that offense, number one, fantasy fans who drafted him in the first round are going to continue to suffer. Number two, the Steelers' offense is going to continue to suffer. And, I mean, Antonio Brown hasn't been what we were hoping for when we drafted him in the first round. I'm not saying it's because of Le'Veon Bell, but there's just something not clicking there with that Steelers offense. It's been very inconsistent. When Ben Roethlisberger plays as badly as he played last night at home in a divisional game, I mean, the offense just there's issues there right now. So if Lev is listening, and I guarantee he's not, Jim Irsay's not listening either, but I'm still going to say it. Lev, we miss you. I miss watching you play football, even if I didn't have you on my fantasy football team. I loved watching you. I hope you get back soon, man. And if you don't wear the old black and gold, or is it the black and yellow? What do they call it? Black and gold or black and yellow?
Gold.
It's not gold, it's yellow. But anyways, whatever color uniform Le'Veon Bell is wearing, maybe it's a Colts jersey. Hope just not the Jets. The Jets stink. Just not the Jets. We will all be waiting for you, my man, because fantasy fans and Steelers fans alike are certainly missing your production.
Man, look, you might not be willing to say that Antonio Brown's struggles have a lot to do. I think it does. I think it does. I think
it's all part and parcel. I mean, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think just not having that other threat there that you don't know what's going to happen, that guy that you have to pay attention to, I think that opens things up in that offense. And look, I don't know anything. Obviously, I'm not in that locker room, but I just have a sneaking suspicion that some of Antonio Brown's frustration this season has less to do with what's happening, in the huddle and on the field, and maybe, and this is my own speculation, in the front office, because he understands that without Lev Bell there, it's going to be hard for him to get his. It's going to be hard for this offense to move, but this is life now. This is your life now, and if you drafted Le'Veon Bell, you are sort of stuck, because if I'm in your league and you're trying to hang him out there in a trade,
I'm not going to take him.
Or at least I'm not going to give you much for him.
I know.
Yeah.
Here, take T.J. Yeldon.
Right. I know. I mean, I legit am going to try to lowball you, and maybe if I can stash Lev on my roster somewhere and hold on until he comes back, but I'm not going to give you anything of real value to try to get Le'Veon.
Yeah, and back to the initial conversation. So right now, if you're looking at sort of how the first round should sort of break down, it's still a lot of running backs, Marcus. So I mean, it's still Alvin, it's still Gurley, it's Melvin Gordon, who I think Money Smith got in the second round in our draft.
I mean, a lot of people
right before me, that was a steal.
He was kind of a fringe, back into the first
and
round.
I don't get why,
early
man,
second
because
round.
he's been so good the last couple of years.
Well,
for some reason, just don't believe in him. But
I think it's just more that he's not efficient, and it's because he I think the fear was what happens if he doesn't get the same number of touches, but he's getting the same number of touches.
Yep.
So that still makes him. Him great.
Michael Thomas is a first round pick. Saquon Barkley's still a first round pick. Adam Thielen, end of the first round pick, right?
Thielen was like a late second.
He's been tremendous, second or third rounder, yeah. So I mean, we're learning more, and it's ridiculous too. Right now, I'm looking at our numbers here on NFL.com. Flex starters, all of the players, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends. You've got Gurley at 2. Then you've got Cooper Kupp, and then Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods all in the top 21. Mm-hmm. This is among all players that aren't quarterbacks, kickers, and defenses. Like, that's just saying something, man. And if Jared Goff, he better be owned in your league, because if he's not, you're not playing in a good league. But this guy, if he hasn't been in your starting lineup, you got to consider him. And even if you have Aaron Rodgers on your team, Aaron Rodgers is not a guy who's a quote-unquote must-start. I talked about that with Patrick Mahomes all week. If you have Mahomes, if you have Matt Ryan, hey, Jared Goff, this dude's balling, man. This guy is balling. His numbers have been incredible, and he's not a system quarterback. He's a talented guy who's really gained a lot of confidence in McVay's offense, and he's got 3 tremendous weapons in the passing game, and he's got Todd Gurley behind him. Sometimes, as Yoda would tell us, you must unlearn what you have learned. And sometimes trying to put Jared Goff in your lineup over a guy like Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers just feels odd. Don't be afraid to do it, man. Do not be afraid to do it, especially in what we've seen this year. Quarterbacks, man. I mean, the position has got a lot of supply and not a lot of demand, and it's coming down to the point where if you've got a quarterback who maybe isn't a big name, he's not Drew Brees, he's not Aaron Rodgers, it doesn't matter. You can start quarterbacks over these guys. Look at Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles. The one week that everyone was on him, he stunk, which was last week. And then everybody kind of faded him, right? Like, okay, you didn't have a good game last week. I'm going to back off of Blake Bortles. And guess what Blake Bortles does? Has another 20-point effort. And oh, by the way, if memory serves me right, he plays the Chiefs next week.
He does. He's on the road at Kansas City next week, so that's going to be an interesting one. But
yep.
I was looking at quarterbacks last night, and the one thing I noticed, first of all, every week so far, there has been at least one quarterback that has put up a 5-touchdown game. Ryan Fitzpatrick had the 4 passes and the 1 run in week 1.
Yep, good point.
Week 2, you had Patrick Mahomes throwing for 6. Mm-hmm. In week 3, you have Ryan who threw for 5. Drew Brees threw 3 and ran for 2 more. And then this past week, Trubisky with the 6, Jared Goff with the 5, Derek Carr. Well, he had 4. I mean, every week there's one quarterback who has put up 5 or more touchdowns. I don't know. I feel like that has less to do with some of these quarterbacks and more to do with the fact that defenses they're so handicapped. I mean, they're handcuffed that they can't do anything.
So how's this, Marcus? So right now, we're talking Mahomes hasn't played tonight yet, but he's got 13 touchdowns. You got Rivers at 11, Goff at 11, Andy Dalton at 11, Fitzpatrick at 11, Cousins at 10, Ryan at 10. So right now, the guys that are 11 or more are on pace for 44 touchdowns. Okay? So, and if you put Mahomes in there, you've got 5 guys on pace for 44 touchdowns plus. And then you've got Matt Ryan, who's got 10, Brady's got 9, Andrew Luck's got 9. These guys on pace for 30-plus touchdown passes. It's insane. It is insane. And part of it, I think, has to do with the rules for the defense. Because I can't, if I'm a defender, I can't even hug a guy. Like, Mayfield got hugged by a defender yesterday. He got hugged.
You can't hit
all the guy. He could have kissed him, and he still got thrown a flag. That was ridiculous.
You can't hit a quarterback.
No.
You can't touch a wide receiver. I mean, there's you can't play defense in this league. And I know part of it is because fans like points, fans like offense. Certainly you want to protect the quarterbacks because they are the marquee players here. But it just, yeah, man.
But don't you miss like those the old school defensive battles, like, NFC North? You got Bears and Vikings. It's like 10-7, and the battle in the track. I missed some of those games. I like the points, but I mean, the offense can't have this big of an opportunity, an advantage over the defense. It's just not fair.
Right. Like I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I love, like 13, 12 games all the time. Like some of them can be entertaining, but at some point you want the defense to be able to kind of push back and not. You want it to be the defense gets some wins and not that the offense is always taking L.
Guys are afraid to hit dudes.
So,
and I'm not saying you got to drill them, but they're afraid to even hit them.
Right.
For fear of getting a penalty. Maybe that's why Matt Ryan and Drew Brees have each had a game where they've rushed for 2 touchdowns. Because defenders, it's a quarterback. I can't touch him.
You can't touch him. I mean, you just can't. So now looking at some guys who were first-round picks or fringe first-round picks, would any of these guys still be first round? If we were drafting right now, would you still take these guys in the first round? And I ask it because it's more of a thought of not only what they've done so far, but your confidence level that maybe they can turn things around and maybe make up that value. So it just hurts me to ask this one. But David Johnson, I mean,
I know.
Like, would he still be? I mean, certainly I think he's completely out of the conversation for that number 1 overall pick. I think that part is dead. But do you still think that he would be worthy, that they can turn things around enough that he'd be worthy of being maybe a back half of the first round?
I mean, I like what I saw yesterday more than I had when Sam Bradford was the quarterback. So, but I'd probably go late first, early second on him. A crazy stat, like just looking at the numbers in PPR leagues, he's got the same number of fantasy points as Austin Eckler,
who's balled out, by the way. But yes,
I know. But you're
not expecting David Johnson and Austin Eckler weren't supposed to be mentioned in the same sentence.
TJ Yeldon has more fantasy points right now than DJ.
You know that. As an aside, I've had to kind of come around on TJ Yeldon because I was not a TJ Yeldon
I'm not a big fan either.
My problem with TJ Yeldon was that he just fell down a lot. And I mean, seriously, like his first couple years in the league, like I would watch him get the ball in space and he would just fall down. And I like running backs that don't just fall down of their own accord. Like I want them to have to be tackled. And I don't know, he just had bad balance. I don't know if he's doing yoga now, if he's learned how to, paddleboard or something. It seems like his balance is better. He's not falling down all the time and he's productive. So,
dude, if Fournette is out next week and you got Yeldon against Kansas City, giddy up.
I don't even know what to tell people about Leonard Fournette, man. Like you're in a world of hurt.
Yeah. Yep.
Mentioned Antonio Brown. He has not been really Antonio Brownish. He had a really nice touchdown catch on Sunday against Baltimore, but it was a otherwise fairly average day, especially by Antonio Brown standards. He was the consensus number 1 wide receiver off the board, but would you still make him a first round pick at this point?
I would. I don't like to take wide receivers in the first round, so for me, that's sort of a stretch to say it. He was in my top 5 in the preseason, and I still think there's plenty of time for him to turn it around. Hasn't been a great start, but again, I mean, you mentioned Le'Veon Bell and how his absence is sort of affecting the Steelers' offense, and it's not been good. But you look at, and again, we're only through a handful of weeks here, so you can't go crazy just yet. I mean, Deshaun Jackson, Robert Woods both have more fantasy points than Antonio Brown. Calvin Ridley.
Calvin Ridley's the greatest.
I mean, Calvin Ridley has got more fantasy points than Antonio Brown. Juju has more fantasy points than Antonio Brown. Cooper Kupp has more fantasy. You get the picture. It's been a slow start to the season, but I still say, based on his resume and the fact that every year in and year out, I mean, this guy is right near the top, if not at the top of that wide receiver position. I'd still say he's worth a first-round pick.
Well, next week they host the Falcons, so
you would think that. And again, Roethlisberger, the home road narrative is kind of going backwards the last couple of weeks. But that's just 2 weeks. Are you still afraid to play Ben Roethlisberger despite that sideways turn the last couple of weeks against Atlanta at home?
I mean, it's more about the Falcons.
Matchup.
It's more about the Falcons and the fact of where that game's being played. So, all right. So then Kareem Hunt, who last year was everybody's favorite rookie running back, he's been an afterthought in an otherwise high-powered offense. He was kind of a late first round, early second round guy. I can't imagine you're at this point spending more than, third, fourth round? Not even that much on him at this point, right?
Yeah, he definitely ain't going in the first round, and second round is sort of sketchy at best at this point. But his saving grace has been that he's actually gotten into the end zone 3 times.
Yep.
But, I mean, look at his yardage. 168 rushing yards. That's it. I mean, if memory serves me correctly, he had like 140 something in the first game last year. I think it was against New England. So those opportunities, those yardage totals leave a lot to be desired.
I mean, and the biggest thing is they're not throwing him the ball.
Nope.
I mean, last year
He has one catch.
he has 3 targets all year long. Last year he was getting about 4 targets per game. This year it's 1 per game, 1 in each game. It's almost like just a cursory, like here's
What's
one.
the big difference?
Well, I mean, Patrick Mahomes.
Exactly.
He's not checking down.
Exactly.
He's going down the field.
Yep.
But yeah, he's actually had some decent, fairly decent rushing yardage numbers. I mean, he had 75 yards in week 2 against Pittsburgh. But other than that, he's Lamar Miller.
Oh man.
I mean, really, look at the way he's performed. He's kind of Lamar Miller right
insult
now.
the poor guy like that.
I mean, look, facts is facts.
Yeah, dude.
So I said 3rd or 4th round. I mean, maybe now that I'm looking
Now
at
Marcas is like hell.
I mean, he may be
Maybe top 50.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll see.
It has not worked out for Kareem Hunt.
Isn't fantasy football a fickle beast?
It is a fickle beast. All right, so on the flip side now, some of these guys that have played well, even if we had high expectations, some of these guys who have exceeded some of these expectations and where you would draft them. We talked a little bit about Melvin Gordon. I mean, he was a guy who was back half of the first round, on Fantasy Pros. Their kind of consensus ADP had him at like number 8 overall. He would be, he's a legitimate, maybe not number 1, but he's a top 3 pick now all of a sudden.
Yeah. What he's really doing, and he's always been a good pass catcher. He's got 24 catches already.
Right.
Average 6 catches a game as a running back. That's pretty good. And Phillip Rivers has all the faith in him in the world as both a runner and a pass catcher. And the Chargers are always going to score points. And another thing that we didn't see coming with the Chargers that has sort of come to fruition, the defense is not that good.
Defense is not good.
So again, you're in a situation where Melvin Gordon's going to see a lot of opportunities to score because, well, that offense is going to potentially need to catch up in games moving forward.
Next one up, Adrian Peterson, who I know you and I were both kind of like, stay away.
Well, no, he is dealing with the ankle now.
He's dealing with it. He's kind of day to day, I believe, right now is the early reports that Washington had a bye last week. They are back in action this week, but he is sort of day to day with that ankle. So we'll see what happens there, which could certainly limit. Although I feel like we saw this too in his last couple of years too, where he spends all week sort of like hobbling around in practice, and then he goes out and he'll get 25 carries and then put up a decent stat line. But this is a guy who obviously the start of the preseason wasn't really on anybody's radars.
Nope.
Gets signed after the Darius Geis injury and kind of worked his way up. So by the time we got to the regular season kicking off, he had become like a 10th round pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And at this point, he'd be drafted higher. But I'm still waiting for the wheels to fall off. I don't know. Maybe,
I know, me too. I am. And
I
don't want to be a hater, but I'm
I don't either.
Be a hater.
He's one of the greatest running backs of our generation, but fantasy or otherwise. But another thing, too, that you have to worry about is I think they play on Monday night. So if we don't get some positive reports towards the end of the week, then you may be thinking, okay, can I play him? Do I have to sit him because it's a Monday night game? But, dude, he's been better than advertised, but I've been saying it, and I don't care. I'm still saying it. I'd sell high on him. I just don't know that he's going to survive a full 16-game schedule. I just don't.
Yeah, he's Monday night on the road in New Orleans, which, I don't know, is that a revenge game?
I know. Is that a revenge game? Well, actually,
it is.
That is.
It's totally a revenge game.
That is
They traded him.
They threw the towel in on him.
They dumped him for Alvin Kamara
Dude.
and traded him to Arizona. That's totally a revenge
That
game
is.
this week.
It is, yeah. So hopefully his status becomes clearer as the week goes on because if he's raring to go and playing against the Saints, he's going to be pissed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But
He's going to be pissed. He's going to be like, look what you guys traded away, man. Look what you traded away.
I still just, the what has been good for him is the fact that they are giving him a lot of touches. And I just don't know that it continues all year long. I just don't know that there's room in the offense for him to get 20 carries a game. Maybe there is. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm willing to kind of bet against that this year.
Yeah, and how about another dude who's long in the tooth for a running back, but Marshawn Lynch.
Balling out.
I didn't love him coming into the season because of Doug Martin. Holy cow!
I will admit I've been wrong on him because last year he didn't look like he had much left. It looked like he was just sort of, I won't say going through the motions, but it was like, yeah, he's back because it's the Raiders and he's back in his hometown, and that's why he wants to come and play out the string with the Raiders before they leave for Vegas.
Yep.
It just didn't seem like like he was kind of all in, but this year he looks all in, and he looks like Marshawn Lynch. Like he looks like the Seattle beast mode that we saw when they were going to Super Bowl.
He was trucking dudes, and Cleveland's got a good defense. They didn't show it yesterday, but did you remember that one run that he had where they whistled it dead?
Mm-hmm.
He went down,
which he would have gotten loose and probably scored a touchdown.
If I had Marshawn and I saw that, I'd be so pissed because my goodness gracious, he wasn't down at all. I mean, this Marshawn Lynch. I mean, come on, dude. Like,
so
that was an awful whistle. Awful.
Watching him run, it's like I imagine trying to be a defender and tackling Marshawn Lynch, and it's sort of like if somebody were just standing in the middle of the street, wildly swinging their arms, just windmilling their arms around, and how you'd have to kind of be sort of careful to try to get in there.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that's what tackling Marshawn Lynch is like.
Yeah, I just envision like Akbar hitting Matt Money Smith. That's kind of what it would be like for Marshawn Lynch to hit you.
But
I mean, boom.
But right now,
boom.
The way he's played,
head snap.
I feel like he's like a second round. He'd be a second round pick right now.
Imagine that.
If we were to
if this continues,
if we were to draft over right now, Marshawn Lynch is a second round running back as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
I mean, I think he has been that good so far this season. Wide receiver Brandon Cooks, and there were obviously expectations. He joins this offense in Los Angeles with the Rams, and my concern with him, one, was that there weren't going to be a lot of touchdowns, and so far he's scored just one. I was worried that he would be more inconsistent, that you would have the
I'm
up
right
and
there
down
with
weeks.
you.
So far, it's been all up all the time,
dude.
and even without the touchdowns, he has done enough to be a legit, almost a wide receiver one right now.
He's giving you 14 plus in PPR every single week. He's giving you over 20 twice, and I'm on board with you. I thought he was more of like a 2 or a 3 than a 1 or a 2 because of Robert Woods and because of Cooper Kupp. But this offense is so good. It's so good.
So good.
That there's enough for all these guys to eat. And I didn't even mention Ty Gurley, who's arguably the best running back in fantasy football. So it's been a surprise to me, but the Rams go into games and they just chuck it down your throat. They chuck it down your throat. They run Gurley, and they chuck it some more. And that's why Jared Goff's numbers have been so good. And that's why, Brandon Cooks, we mentioned it. Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods, and Cooper Kupp are all in the top 25 in PPR scoring, not among wide receivers, among everybody, among running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and part of it is because of all those guys you mentioned. You can't focus your energy defensively on one guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you spend all your time trying to slow down Brandon Cooks, then as we saw, Cooper Kupp goes wild or Robert Woods goes wild. I mean, you can't focus all your energy on Todd Gurley, and they haven't even gotten their tight ends involved. I mean, there was thought that maybe the tight ends start to get more involved this year. That hasn't even been the case, and they haven't missed them. Nobody's complaining that Tyler Higbee or Gerald Everett aren't really getting involved in this offense because they're just rolling right.
And you look at the schedule too, and at this point, they're matchup proof. Minnesota's defense is not as good as we thought it was going to be, but they got wrecked last week. You're at Seattle, and you mentioned it on the show on the TV side. The Legion of Boom is
over.
No longer.
Pour some out.
At Denver, tougher matchup. Denver's not as good as it used to be. At San Francisco, good matchup. Green Bay, shootout potentially. New Orleans, shootout potentially. Seahawks, Kansas City, shootout potentially. At Detroit, shootout potentially. Then you got the Bears in Week 14. That's probably the hardest and toughest match that they're going to face all season long. Then you've got Philadelphia the week after, but again, home game. Eagles are not good defensively on the road. It's weird. Just look at the numbers. I'm telling you the truth. And then Week 16 at Arizona. So you can be having a lot of those LA Rams leading a lot of people into their playoffs and through to the championship.
What right now, and this is me, my galaxy brain projecting way down the road. If you have Rams, if you have Gurley, Woods, Kupp, Cooks, Goff, you need the Saints. You need somebody in the NFC North. If it's the Bears, if it's the Vikings to turn it around, you need somebody. You just need somebody else to keep pushing the Rams.
Yes.
They're gonna have this division locked up because there's nobody else in the NFC West that's going to challenge them. The Seahawks are a mess. The Niners are a mess. The Cardinals are awful. They're gonna lock up this division by Halloween. The way this is going.
Gosh.
So then the only thing that is keeping them really focused is chasing that number 1 seed and the home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs. That's going to kind of keep them motivated. But even if they get a lead there and kind of wrap that up fairly early, not that I don't think they're going to sit guys completely, but you might see guys just playing a half. You might see Jared Goff, kind of not going all out. I mean, look, they rested all their guys in the preseason, so it's not like Sean McVay is above just sitting guys. Once they have everything done, so you kind of need to cheer for somebody else in the NFC to keep pushing this race, just so that the Rams have to kind of play their guys and make sure they get wins each and every week.
Yeah, I remember there was a time years ago where, it was like. I think it was Peyton Manning was the typical example, or Edgerrin James, like the Colts would always win their division. They'd always sort of set themselves up for the playoffs early, and then you'd always have to sort of replace some of your best players. And there was a small movement in fantasy to move fantasy championships to week 15, because then you kind of knew that you were going to get your guys, and it wasn't fair. But yeah, that could potentially be an issue this year with the Rams. Hopefully not. I think the NFL schedule makers have done a better job now, where there's more important games toward the end of the schedule,
right.
So that hasn't happened as often. But that was something that used to happen all the time. And if somebody don't catch up with the Rams, or that offense doesn't slow down, that could be a potential issue right around the holidays.
One last one, Emmanuel Sanders, who I loved Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah, we were all on him, dude.
But he's a round 8 guy. I mean, part of the reason I liked him was because I felt like even there would be an upgraded quarterback, obviously, with Case Keenum, that he and Demaryius Thomas, generally when that offense works well, their numbers have tended to be very similar to one another. And so my thought was, well, if I'm going to get similar production to Demaryius Thomas, why not get that, but wait 3 or 4 rounds later. Emmanuel Sanders has been lights out. He has exceeded even my
rushed
expectations.
for a touchdown.
Yeah, he's exceeded my expectations. Obviously, we don't know what he's going to do on Monday night. We haven't seen that game yet.
We would think he'll be pretty good. And then you got the Jets, and they can't stop slot receivers. See D.D. Westbrook, who I told you to start last week. He is a guy that and boy, then you got the Rams the following week. I'm just looking at the schedule here. You got Kansas City 2 weeks later. And we kind of all like Sanders because what we saw with Case last year with Adam Thielen, like target the slot a lot. Sanders run a lot of routes out of the slot, and it is clearly worked out for fantasy owners.
Yeah, I mean, so he's been fantastic. He had a round 8 ADP. By the time we got to the regular season, I suspect that bumps up probably four rounds or so. I mean, he's probably a guy you're looking at in the 4th, 5th round in a lot of drafts. So he has returned more than expected value so far this season. So now that we are through pretty much 4 weeks and we're looking at this, who in your mind has been maybe the biggest bust so far?
I gotta give you just one. I mean,
okay, sure, you got a couple. I'm all ears.
I mean, dude, there's a bunch. So Fournette so far, and I get it because it's the injuries. So I don't know if you can call someone a bust, but I mean, based on where you drafted him, I mean, McCoy. I mean, they're not even giving him the football.
I thought he was gonna be bad. I didn't think he would be this.
No, we all were sort of like anti-McCoy. We didn't like him this season based on age, based on offense.
But they're not even trying to get him
It's
involved.
bad, dude. It's bad. Dalvin Cook, I love him. Injuries have really hurt him, and he was a guy a lot of people, including myself, thought were going to really break out this season. I mean, he was sort of a back of the line RB1, top end RB2. Hasn't done it so far this year. Larry Fitzgerald's been banged up. He hasn't produced, and I don't know whether it's not the hamstring or the quarterback situation, but he hasn't been getting it done. And one that a lot of people were on this guy in the preseason, and I actually saw him drafted as high as the 4th or 5th round, but Chris Hogan.
Yeah, that one.
Chris Hogan, I mean, there's a chance that Chris Hogan could end up being on the waiver wire at some point in the next 2 or 3 weeks, depending on what happens with Josh Gordon and Julian Edelman in his return.
Yeah, that was one, and I liked Chris Hogan. I also thought he had a short shelf life fantasy wise.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yep.
I mean, when we said this in the summer, we certainly didn't know that the Patriots were going to trade for Josh
Exactly.
Gordon, but we knew that Julian Edelman was going to come back, and that was going to deflect that. But Philip Dorsett, PD. He has been the better fantasy receiver so far this year in New England, and Chris Hogan has been 7-Eleven has closed its doors.
Yeah, it has.
That has been bad.
Are those still out there, by the way, 7-Eleven?
Yeah, there's one across the street from our office.
Is there? I never leave this place, man.
There's one literally across the street from the office.
Back east, they're all Cumberland Farms.
I have no idea what
it's all it's all Cumberland Farms. So 7-Eleven, I'm like, oh, okay, so I don't get out of this building from like August until December. So yeah.
It's like literally across the street.
Yeah.
I was trying to think some of the other the big ones. Would you call maybe it's too far to call Odell Beckham a bust, but he's been a disappointment.
Well, he's not getting into the end zone, and defense is clearly keying on him, and they have some other options too, especially with Saquon Barkley. But I mean, I talked about this in the preseason. Like OBJ was going to see some touchdown regression, like he just was. The Giants had no running game at all last year, nothing. I mean, it was the Wayne Gallman they had last year, and Orleans Darkwa. I mean, it was bad. I mean, it was bad. They just didn't have anybody. And Saquon Barkley is one of these guys. He's a talent that doesn't come out of the collegiate level very often, and he's right there with Zeke Elliott in terms of his skill set. He's very good, maybe even a better pass catcher than a lot of these running backs in the game right now. I mean, clearly a guy who's elite when it comes to PPR leagues. So I'm not surprised that the touchdown production has not been there. I'm not ready to call him a bust yet. I mean, the guy is still got 331 yards in his first 4 games, 31 catches. But is this someone you're clearly worried about, like moving forward, like to the point where you're going to put him on your bench? I mean, I don't think so.
I'm not going to put him on my bench. No. I will say though, what does worry me, and look, this is my general rant against efficiency, right? And I know that with analytics taking a big step forward and being a big part of what teams do, and look, I get it. Look, a lot of smart people have put a lot of work into this, and there have been results on the field. But it also changes the way you look at some of these players, because now what is key for quarterbacks is completion percentage, right? And trying to complete as many passes as they can. I mean, Drew Brees is out here talking about 80% completions is a realistic option for him this year. And maybe it is. But a lot of that also means that you're throwing a lot of safer passes, a lot of shorter passes. And so now the goal is, especially for wide receivers, is yards after the catch have to be a big deal. It also changes the way defenses play. They will play a lot more center field. They'll try to keep everything underneath. It's like, I mean, you guys are baseball fans, right? It's like playing no doubles defense, right? You back off, you play the corners, and you just try to make sure that you keep everything in front of you. And so now, sure, you get guys like Tyreek Hill, and I think OBJ has that ability to go out and make plays and get by defenders after the catch. But man, it gets a whole lot harder as opposed to, say, Julio Jones, who's making catches, 20 yards down the field. I mean, I think I saw a tweet earlier today. The Giants haven't even tried to target Odell more than 20 yards down the field since week 2. They're not even trying to get him down the field. And that is a little bit worrisome to me, because now all of a sudden it does put a lot of pressure on the wide receiver to not only make the catch, but suddenly turn that 7-yard pass into a 20, 30-yard gain. Sometimes you do it, sometimes you don't. The weeks you don't, those 100-yard games end up being like 40-yard games. And that's the part that worries me. So, I don't know. That's my own little rant. I also think that efficiency, while it is useful and great and wins games, just isn't fun to watch. I just think efficient football is sort of boring. But I'm sure I'll get some analytics people yelling at me in my mentions. Don't care. Efficient football is boring to watch. Biggest surprises so far. I mean, I would say Patrick Mahomes at the top of that list.
Yep.
I mean, we thought he could be okay. I didn't think he would be the second coming of Dan Marino.
Yeah, he's been ridiculous. I can't wait to watch him play Denver. But boy, I can't. You want to talk about games I can't wait to watch? Kansas City, Jacksonville. I mean,
that's going to be interesting.
Great defense, great offense. That's going to be fun. Andy Reid clearly saw something. I mean, he was like, "Hey, Alex Smith, career season, ship you off to Washington. Take care." And Mahomes is there. I mean, Jared Goff is there too. You got to think about him. I get it. He showed flashes last season, but we didn't.
He was supposed to be this.
Tyler Boyd has been awesome. He got 3 games now straight with 20-plus PPR points. And, A.J. Green is not suffering at all. He's putting up numbers as well. And you've got to be – so coming into drafts, and if you disagree with me, let me know. I think we all thought DJ Moore was going to be the best rookie wide receiver.
Yep.
Moore
for me, it was either him or Michael Gallup. Was kind of a toss-up, but neither one has been anything.
But Ridley, this guy is scoring touchdowns like they are going out of style.
I feel like we sort of underestimated him, and I remember watching him at Alabama, and I think what happened is you saw at Alabama that he made plays, but there was also a lot of really bad quarterback play
right
at Alabama. I mean, I know they ended up winning a championship, and Tua Tagovailoa, I probably butchered that. Sorry, Tua.
Better than I could have done.
He came in late in the season and came in the championship game and got him a win. Jalen Hurts struggled trying to connect with him, and I think that sort of clouded my impression of him, but the dude's a technician, man. I mean, he kind of runs routes and gets open the way we saw with a young Odell Beckham. And the way that offense works, especially around the goal line, he's just so valuable.
All right, Marcus, I got a question for you. So he's got Pittsburgh this week, great matchup, and then you got Tampa Bay the following week, which we talked about, which is a great matchup.
Yep.
Say he just keeps going nuts. I mean, he's got 6 touchdowns right now, which leads all wide receivers in the NFL. Somebody after week 6 offers you OBJ for Calvin Ridley. See, this is why fantasy football is hard. Because in the preseason, this would have been the biggest no-brainer in the history of no-brainers, and now Marcus is thinking about it.
Yeah, I mean, if you had come to me in August and said, I'll give you Calvin Ridley for Odell Beckham Jr., I would have dropped a lot of expletives and told you to leave me alone.
But now, say he has 3 touchdowns in the next 2 weeks, which is very possible considering the competition that he's got going on. It's not out of the realm of possibility that someone would say, I'd rather have Calvin Ridley than OBJ, or is it?
No, I mean, I'm sure somebody out there will make that move. I wouldn't. And maybe this is bias, right? Maybe this is just it's sample size bias.
Yep.
And having seen Beckham do this over a longer period of time means I still believe, and I'm still going to hold out hope because I think at his best, Odell's ceiling is way higher than Calvin Ridley's ceiling on a week-to-week basis. And so I think that alone makes me hesitant to make that move, but you're right. I mean, you said it, and I had to sigh and think about it for a second.
You got to think about it
because it is a legitimate possibility of at least it's not a completely ridiculous thing to think about. So so those are our kind of draft do-overs. I'm sure we'll probably do this again when we hit the midpoint of the season.
Yeah,
because we'll learn a whole lot more, and some of these guys who are hot right now may have fallen off. Some of the guys who are cold right now may pick things up, but it's always fun to kind of look back and see what we might do differently.
And how dumb we all were.
Right. I mean, here's the one thing we always learn is that we really don't know anything. We get to this point.
And it's funny because we all look at the stats, we all look at the same things, we all look at the same trends. Everybody's looking at the same stuff. So
yeah, no doubt. Yep, no doubt. Away offers high-quality luggage that is designed to be resilient, resourceful, and essential to the way you travel. Available in a variety of colors and 4 sizes, including carry-on sizes that are compliant with all major U.S. airlines. That is important. The Away suitcase is lightweight and made with premium German polycarbonate that's unrivaled in strength and impact resistance. Not to mention, it features a TSA-approved combination lock, 4 360-degree spinner wheels, and a patent-pending compression system to help overpackers, in case you just can't get everything into that suitcase. Better yet, both sizes of the carry-on are able to charge anything that's powered by a USB cord. A single charge will power your iPhone 5 times. That is huge. I just got one of these things, and I'm actually trying to plan a trip somewhere. I'm just making up places to go now so I can use this thing. It looks great. The lock seems like a game changer on this one, and I was at home last night just folding clothes and just throwing it in there just to see how stuff will work because I think this is going to be kind of great. You can try out Away for 100 days, vibe with it, travel with it, Instagram it, do it for the gram. If at any point you decide it's not for you, return it for a full refund. Shipping is free within the lower 48 states. And thanks to Away's lifetime warranty, if anything breaks, they'll fix it. So you've got nothing to lose. For $20 off a suitcase, visit awaytravel.com/live and use the promo code LIVE during checkout. That's awaytravel.com/live and promo code LIVE for $20 off your Away suitcase. It is Monday, which means tomorrow is Tuesday when you should be getting your waiver. I mean, you can make your waiver claims now, but Tuesday Tuesday night is usually when they run in most leagues. Wednesday morning, you wake up and see what sort of goodies you got under the fantasy tree. So, as always, some of the names on the waiver wire. Last week was really heavy on wide receivers. This week, kind of a mixed bag.
Yep.
Top of the list, though, the Ginger Ninja, Andy Dalton.
Andy Dalton.
Look, sometimes you get good Andy, sometimes you get bad Andy, but right now, this looks like a good Andy season. He's playing well this year.
I know, and people talked about this in the preseason, that the Bengals offense had to move forward based on what it was last season, and last season it was bad because they improved the offensive line. John Ross was the guy that everyone thought was going to help improve this offense. It's actually been Tyler Boyd who's been tremendous, even though Ross did find the end zone yesterday. But, I mean, the Bengals, again, perfect mix of they've got good talent in the passing game, and their defense is not all that good. So Dalton's certainly worth a look off the waiver wire if he's still available. Right now, still a free agent in about 85% of leagues on NFL.com, although sometimes our numbers are a little bit skewed. So, but he's not the only quarterback, right? I mean, we talked about Jameis Winston, who is a potential pickup off the waiver wire. Not for this week because you're not going to be able to use him because the Buccaneers have a bye. But I mentioned Blake Bortles, and Blake Bortles is a guy who's available in a lot of leagues right now, playing the Chiefs. And dare I say it, because Russell Wilson killed me this week in one of my leagues, actually in two of my leagues, and he's got the Rams coming up. And the Rams own him. They own him. Like, Russell's numbers against the Rams typically are awful. I think it's like 5 of his last 7, he's had 16 or fewer points. Awful. I'm going to pick up Blake Bortles and start him, if I can get him, over Russell Wilson this week.
Wow.
And I ain't going to think twice about it. Like, you know what, Russell? See ya, buddy.
Wow.
Chiefs, great matchup for Bortles. Potentially no Fournette again. I'm doing it.
Wow.
I'm doing it. I'm going to listen to my own advice.
Okay.
Which maybe I should do. Because other people are listening. But, dude, I mean, like, you could start anybody. Anybody with a good matchup, you could start them. Yeah. Mitchell Trubisky had 6 touchdowns. Mitchell Trubisky's not that good. He's not that good. The Buccaneers defense is terrible. It's just terrible. Like, Mitch Trubisky might not have 6 touchdown passes in his next 3 games combined. But it's about the matchups. It's about the matchups.
I actually thought that Mitch Trubisky could be decent this week. I mean, I said he was a guy that was worth a look. I mean, I know we did the hot takedown last week on Fantasy Live. I said he'd be a top 10 quarterback. I mean, that was a hot take, right? That was a hot take that he'd be a top 10. Because I thought even a good game for Trubisky, his ceiling was like 18, 19 points. And then I'm sitting there on Sunday watching him just sling touchdown passes, and that was insane. I mean, that was crazy. That was beyond what I ever.
So I'm in a Superflex league, and I put in a claim for Trubisky, and I got him because I had Cam on a bye. And so this team, no one cares about my fantasy football team. Let's just say I put up 212 points. That one league alone, 212 points, and Trubisky was a big part of it.
A name on this list that I think is kind of a sneaky one. We were talking about rookie wide. I almost said Wookie. Rookie wide.
Wait, I want to hear you say this guy's name.
Well, I just like to say Kiki Kuti. I just like to say Kiki
Kuti. Now you sound like an Ewok now.
Right? I know. That was like a sand person or a Jawa or something like that. So Kuti, who was a rookie receiver with the Houston Texans, because it's certainly possible. It's certainly possible that people don't know who this guy is. Was a 4th-round pick on Sunday. 15 targets. I mean, this was his season debut. 15 targets, 11 catches, 109 yards. Obviously, when you got Nuke Hopkins and Will Fuller, that sort of volume is not going to be there for you every week. But what I think he fills is an important role working out of the slot in this offense. It's a thing that Deshaun Watson hasn't had. The thing that Deshaun Watson does is, because the offensive line is bad, one, he's usually on the move, but he spends a lot of time holding on to the football. And he takes a lot of time to throw the ball deep downfield, which is fun, especially when it's working. It gets yards, it gets in the end zone, that sort of thing. But in terms of moving this offense on a consistent basis, it's a lot of low percentage throws. Kuti, working out of the slot, can give them an option that's a little bit shorter downfield. It can those short routes, those intermediate routes, and when Deshaun Watson is under pressure, a guy that he can outlet the football to. So I think there's a definite role for him in this offense, and it's a passing game that has worked very well. I mean, Lamar Miller has been a non-factor, really, most weeks in this offense, but they're still putting up yards. I mean, Watson has given you 300-plus yards pretty much every week this season. So now he's got another guy to kind of outlet to when things start to go sideways. And I think, he's a guy that, especially in deeper leagues, is definitely worth a pickup in a stash if he's not already on a roster somewhere. But I just think that going forward, he's going to start to kind of work in. Again, you're not going to get 15 targets every week for this guy, but I do think he's got a possibility, an option to really be kind of productive.
And think about it, Will Fuller, I mean, he's a lot of things. He ain't durable.
He's not. I mean, he
ain't durable,
he
man.
got nicked up a little bit on Sunday. So, I mean, that's something to keep an eye on. You talked about Nyheim Hines a little bit. I mean, you were basically making a plea for the Colts to trade for Le'Veon Bell. But in a backfield that has been hard to figure out, at least we have figured out that Nyheim Hines is the pass-catching running back.
He is. And if you look at the numbers that he's put up as a pass catcher, I mean, they've been very impressive. Now, we don't know what's going on with Marlon Mack. And they do have a Thursday night game this week against the Patriots. But I think Hines needs to be owned in most leagues, especially in PPR leagues, because Jordan Wilkins ain't getting it done. Now the one thing that you got to look for, like Robert Turbin is going to be off of suspension now.
Right.
So I don't know if they're going to mix him in as well, and we don't know what's going on with Marlon Mack. But at this point, I mean, Nyheim Hines has like one fewer point than David Johnson, and it's all about what he's doing as a pass catcher. Right now, he's got 22 catches, okay, which is tied for the fourth most in the league with Christian McCaffrey, who clearly had a bye week already, but James White too. So he ain't going to give you any rushing yards, but he could potentially give you, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 6 catches per week. And if you're hurting for a running back this week and Mack can't play and we don't know what's going on with Turbin, Nyheim Hines is someone to keep an eye on.
Nick Chubb is a guy that a lot of people are going to go get after the big game.
But 3 carries, though, right?
3 carries.
3 carries.
So, I mean,
he averaged like 30-something yards a carry. It was like ridiculous.
Right. Now, he had 2 long touchdowns.
Yeah, dude.
I was sort of joking with JJ Zacharyson, our pal, friend of the show. He talked about it on Twitter, and I jokingly responded with, yeah, but you take away those 2 long touchdown runs. He just had 1 carry for 1 yard, so obviously the guy's not any good. I'm torn because on the one hand, he looked great. He had the 2 long touchdown runs, but as you mentioned, just 3 carries. I think those are the only 3 snaps he played were those 3 carries. The Browns seem to like Carlos Hyde, who's finding the end zone on a weekly basis, which makes it hard for them to get him out of the lineup. I just feel like this is one that everybody's going to reach for, and you'll get him, and then because 3 carries has been his season high. He had 3 carries in week 1. Weeks 2 and 3, he had 2 carries apiece, and then week 4, he had 3 carries.
Yeah, I'm not in on it.
That seems to make it hard to go get him unless they can give you more opportunity. This just feels like you're reaching for something that may not be there.
Yeah. Heck, he had a great game, 2 big runs, but the volume's not there. Those kind of numbers are not sustainable based on the number of touches that he's getting.
Right.
It's just, it just not going to happen. One running back that I would target, though, and I don't know that he's out there. I'm looking, I've looked on NFL.com. I looked on a couple of other sites. He could be out there. Aaron Jones. Dude, he's so much better than Ty Montgomery and Jamal. He's just so much better.
Yeah, I mean...
And we said it last season, too, and there's still... I get it, it's like the 3-headed monster situation, but Aaron Rodgers did go to bat for him last week. We saw a video on the social where he said, hey, we got to get him the ball, and he's like Ryan Grant. And for those of you who haven't been playing fantasy football for a long time, Ryan Grant was a pretty good fantasy back for the Packers years ago.
Oh, not to be confused with the current Colts.
Yes, exactly.
Ryan.
Right, don't confuse the two. But... I mean, I would heck, Jones looked good, and I get it. The Bills' defense isn't any good against the run, but to me, I feel like at some point, the talent's got to freaking rise, and get more opportunities. And I know McCarthy likes to use Williams, and he likes to use Ty Montgomery as well. But I mean, Jones is the best back in that trio. Hopefully, Aaron Rodgers is whispering in McCarthy's ear and saying, "Hey, Aaron Jones is pretty good."
I guess
maybe we need to get him more touches.
I don't know that what you're saying is what everybody's saying, that he is the more explosive back, the more productive back. He looks better. But man, at this point, we've got about 14 games worth of sample size of these guys together, and regardless, it has been a committee, and I just think this is what Mike McCarthy is going to do. And so I don't know, maybe Aaron Rodgers has some pull in that respect, but I just think that this is the life we live now. And on top of it, Ty Montgomery is still getting sprinkled in there.
Yeah, I know.
And so
they do have Detroit this week, though. Their defense is awful against the run.
Yeah, I mean,
sleeper alert.
It is. It's awful against the run. Just the question is, which one of those guys will get the money touches. So I think Aaron Jones is worth a pickup. I just think that this is who we are. This is where we are.
I don't know. I kind of like him this week as a flex.
So we'll see. Some other names just to keep an eye on. Jameis Winston, obviously we talked about. Cameron Brate, who I think gets some run because Jameis seems to like throwing to Cameron Brate.
Who leads the Jaguars in targets right now?
Who does
D.D. Westbrook.
Again, that wide receiver.
Playing the Chiefs.
That wide receiver.
Giddy up.
Good luck trying to figure that out. And Taylor Gabriel, don't chase the points on that one.
And they're off.
He had the huge week, and you're right. They're off this week also, so that's another thing to keep in mind.
Vance McDonald is another player that we've talked about as a guy you could pick up if you need a tight end.
Chris Conti doesn't want to hear that.
So many of us do. I know, right? He had a good tweet on that last week, like he hopes someone gets trucked or whatever.
So yeah, somebody does something else embarrassing, so we weren't talking about him. Nick Van Nett also with Will Dissly hurt. Nick Van Nett could be one. Again, if you're
this is where we're at, really, Marcus.
This is where we're
Nick
at.
Van Nett, we're at. Wow.
Nick Van Nett. Of course, you can find all this information out and more on the NFL app. It's back this season, completely reimagined. You can now stream live games locally, get all primetime games right on your phone, along with the all-new Game Center for breaking news, highlights, stats, and real-time insights from around the NFL or for your favorite team. Be sure to download the NFL app. I have it. It's great. I use it especially when I'm out and about and a game's going on that I can't necessarily sit down and watch. It is great to kind of keep updated with, get highlights, all that kind of stuff. So it is totally worth your while. Before we get out of here, do we have any Monday Moanin' tweets?
We do,
Okay.
and you actually shared a couple on your own feed. Pretty funny in a sad way, but let's do some hashtag Monday Morning tweets. Thanks to everyone who sent those out. We have at GD post, I started Fitz Tragic over luck.
Why?
We have at Tim Swinyard, I started Jordan Howard over Golden Tate. Seemed like a safer bet.
I mean, it didn't make. I mean, look, they're playing the Bucks and it's Jordan Howard. Like, it made sense.
Yep.
I understand that.
Yep.
It makes all the sense in the world why I would do this, but I started Drew Brees over Marcus Mariota.
Of course.
that made sense too.
I mean, you can't kick yourself for these
that
decisions.
game was supposed to be a track meet, man. It was not.
I mean, I get it. Like, it's funny, but you can't kick yourself for these decisions.
What was that
because
game?
these are the decisions that smart fantasy people would make.
I mean, that was a.
But it doesn't turn out that way.
That game was what, like 9-7 at halftime or something like that.
They had the Saints had 4 trips to the red zone. The Giants stopped. They held them to 3 field goals and 1 touchdown.
Who knew the hero of that game would be Will Lutz?
Yeah, I'm not. I don't want to talk about that. Let's see what tweets. In the same boat as your Monday morning, started Juju over Cup.
Yeah, that's how I started. I said that I picked the wrong USC receiver in one of my leagues. I started Juju, and I left Robert Woods on my bench.
Again, man, it's like one of those things.
It
Everyone's doing that. Everyone's looking at the same numbers.
It made sense.
Stuff happens.
2 more good ones here. I started Dalvin Cook over Calvin Ridley in my flex position.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Ugh.
That one hurts. I actually started Cook in one of my leagues because I didn't have another player that I trusted enough to go over him. I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'll get a touchdown out of him. I got
And
Buckets.
at DJ Sean 085, I started Fournette over James White.
Ooh, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I probably would have done that too, because you figured Fournette was back, right? That means he's healthy, he was going to play, but then he ends up leaving with a hamstring injury, so that sucks. Well, that'll do it for this show. Again, thanks to Shawn Barber for stopping by. Best of luck to him and his fantasy team. Best of luck to all of you out there in your fantasy teams. Hopefully the Monday night game treats you well, get you a win, however you need it to go down. So be sure to come back for the next edition of the NFL Fantasy Live podcast. In the meantime, always remember, when nothing is going right, go left. We'll see you on Thursday.
Come back, Left Bell.